If you're like me and have been stuck at home since March due to the pandemic, then I'm sure you too have felt the need to get out and venture. This year has stripped us of so many travel opportunities, and I wasn't about to let it take my favorite holiday too. I've always made it a tradition to take off on Halloween, celebrated doing the usual, carving pumpkins, watching horror movies. But for 2020, I thought I'd do something a little more memorable, and planned a 4-day road trip devoted to all of the haunts I'd normally indulge in on a TV screen. From horror film locations to facing my own fears of camping and solitude, I invite you along my Pennsylvania road trip. During our first night on the road, we made our way through Reading, PA, to check out one of its monumental icons, the Pagoda. You can find this beauty towering 620 feet above the city. The Pagoda was built in 1908 with the intention of being a small piece in a much larger luxury resort plan. The plan was abandoned and almost demolished until it was donated to Reading in 1911. It now serves as a cafe and tourist spot. It's not at all haunted, but on a rainy night, it sure looks wicked. The next stop on our road trip took us through a small city not far from Pittsburgh called Evans City. More specifically, we found ourselves at Evans City Cemetery. We traveled back in time to 1968, where an iconic American-Canadian director filmed a cult classic, and quite a few others in the surrounding area. The opening of this scene, however, was shot right here, on these grounds. It changed the game for horror in the 60s, reimagined what zombies could be, and became an influence for lovers of the undead for years to come. And what better time to visit than the day of Halloween? Look familiar? You guessed it. The Night of the Living Dead was filmed here, and even has its own museum. Unfortunately, it was closed due to renovations, but if you're lucky enough to find yourself here after November 7th, definitely check it out. If you've ever tried searching haunted places in Pennsylvania, you've likely come across Coulterville Cemetery. As the story has it, before this plot of land became a place to mourn loved ones, upon it lied an orphanage in the 19th century. One night, the orphanage burnt up, leaving nothing but the spirits of children behind. It's said that if you visit the cemetery after sundown, you can sometimes hear the laughter and footsteps of these children. We went, but no such encounters. On our way to Pittsburgh, we made another quick stop at a filming location just outside the city. With no modesty, this home proudly advertises its infamous appearance in the 1991 psychological horror Silence of the Lambs. In the film, this house belonged to Buffalo Bill and served as a holding spot for his victims. This house can be found in a small residential area, and it is under 24-hour surveillance. To my surprise, it's actually on the market. Only serious bidders are welcome. This state park is not known for being haunted, nor was it ever a location used in any horror film. But it is a terrifying place to visit if you happen to be someone who suffers from acrophobia, a fear of heights, or lalapsophobia, a fear of natural disasters. Because here lies Kinsuwa Bridge, once declared the longest and highest viaduct and an eighth wonder of the world. In 1882, this bridge measured slightly over 2,000 feet long, and what I'm now standing on still sits 301 feet above ground. In 2003, during an effort to restore the bridge, a tornado swept clean through, leaving the ruins to sit just below what's left of it. Our last and most scenic campsite was both peaceful and horrifying, at least for me. We had traveled up north to Lyman Run State Park on Halloween, where we'd spend 2 days of camping in the sticks of Pennsylvania, with the darkest of nights, icy weather, and no signal. This would be a year where Halloween would bring a full moon, and it was a great place to experience it. Having seen one too many slasher films, my mind was the scariest place to be of all. Having never spent time in an RV or taken a road trip like this before, I'm so thrilled to have done so. Despite all the negative what-ifs or could-bes that came along with it, all was perfect, and now I'll need to find a way to top Halloween next year. Where would you go if you had an RV?